Steve Scalise among 5 shot at baseball field. A lone gunman opened fire on Republican members of the Congressional baseball team at a practice field in a Washington suburb Wednesday, using a rifle to shower the field with bullets that struck 5 people, including Steve Scalise, the majority whip of the House of Representatives. 2 members of Mr. Scalise's protective police detail were wounded as they exchanged gunfire with the shooter in what other lawmakers described as a chaotic, terror-filled 10 minutes that turned the baseball practice into an early morning nightmare. Police said a total of 5 people were shot, 2 critically. Standing at second base, Mr. Scalise was struck in the hip, according to witnesses, and collapsed as the shots rang out, one after another, from behind a chain-link fence near the third base dugout. Witnesses said Mr. Scalise, of Louisiana, army crawled his way toward taller grass as the shooting continued. 2. Law enforcement officials identified the gunman as James T. Hodgkinson, 66, from Belleville, Ill, a suburb of St. Louis. The Washington Post first identified Mr. Hodgkinson as the suspect in the shooting. Police said the gunman was wounded and taken into custody after the gunfight with the Capitol Police security detail and local police officers, who arrived minutes after they received plaintive calls for help from those at the field. The FBI said the Bureau would take the lead in the investigation, treating it as an assault on a federal officer. Witnesses described a man with white hair and a beard wielding a long gun standing behind the dugout. He was hunting us at that point, said Representative Mike Bishop, Republican of Michigan, who was standing at home plate when the shooting began at 7:09 a.m. Mr. Bishop said the shooter seemed to be double-tapping the trigger of his weapon. There was so much gunfire, you couldn't get up and run. Pop, 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 pop. It's a sound I'll never forget. Authorities said they could not comment on the motive for the shooting. Tim Slater, a special agent in charge in the FBI's Washington field office, said investigators are exploring all angles. Asked whether the shooting was an assassination attempt, he said it was too early in the investigation to say one way or another. Aides to Mr. Scalise said Wednesday morning that he underwent surgery at MedStar Washington Hospital Center and is in stable condition. Police said a total of 5 people were transported to hospitals. A friend of Zachary Barth, a staff member for Representative Roger Williams, Republican of Texas, posted a message from Mr. Barth on Facebook saying, "I got shot this morning at the baseball fields, but I am in the hospital and okay. Thank you for the thoughts and prayers." Representative Mo Brooks told CNN that at least 5 people were injured, including 2 law enforcement officers and a congressional aide, while members of a Republican congressional baseball team were practicing. Mr. Brooks said the gunman, who had a rifle, said nothing as he opened fire. At least 50 shots were fired, congressional sources said. The police said the gunman was shot and wounded and taken into custody. Mr. Brooks said he went to the aid of one of the victims and used his belt as a tourniquet to help stop the bleeding from a gunshot to his leg. He said it was about 2 to 5 minutes before other officers arrived. "My adrenaline is raging," he told CNN. "It's not easy to take when you see people around you being shot and you don't have a weapon yourself." Mr. Scalise, a self-described strong conservative leader, represents the 1st Congressional District of Louisiana, which extends from the New Orleans suburbs. Mr. Brooks said Mr. Scalise was shot in the hip and was at second base and dragging himself into the outfield to get away from the gunman. "There is not a whole lot you can do," he said. "It was emotionally distressing to know the position he was in." He said the security officers were screaming for reinforcements, and it seemed like forever. But it was probably Alexandria. Police said the gunfire was reported at 7:09 a.m. and they were there within 3 minutes. Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona, speaking to reporters, said he heard a very loud shot and then a rapid succession of gunshots. He said that the man had dark hair and was wearing a blue shirt and jeans, and had a rifle. It was obviously a large-gauge rifle, he said, adding that people were hiding behind trees, getting on the ground or running. Bullets were flying. He had a lot of ammo, he said of the gunman. He added, "You've got to assume he knew what he was doing here. It is unclear whether Steve Scalise was targeted." Mr. Flake said Mr. Scalise remained coherent after being shot. Gabrielle Giffords, a former member of Congress from Arizona, said on Twitter, "My heart is with my former colleagues, their families and staff, and the U.S. Capitol Police public servants and heroes today and every day." Ms. Giffords was a week into her third term as a United States Representative when she was shot in the head at close range in a grocery store parking lot during a meeting with constituents on January 8, 2011. The gunman killed 6 people and, aside from Ms. Giffords, injured 12 others, the White House said in a statement that President Donald J. Trump and Vice President Mike Pence were made aware of the shootings. "We are deeply saddened by this tragedy," the statement said. "Our thoughts and prayers are with the members of Congress, their staffs, Capitol Police, first responders, and all others affected." Rep. Jared Huffman said on Twitter that the Democratic baseball team was practicing when its members heard the news. "We're safe and with police, everyone praying for GOP colleagues, staff and Cap Police," he wrote. Rep. Peter King, a Republican from New York who was not there, said it was fortunate there were armed security at the field with the members. "God knows what would have happened if they weren't there," he said in a telephone interview.